Here's where it gets really fun. We're actually going to start solving. And when it comes to solving, what that means is you find any missing sides and then any missing angles as well. It doesn't matter what you pick first. I usually find missing sides first because it's just Pythagorean theorem. So we've got this side right here. I'm going to call that x. And so I'm going to go ahead, start with the hypotenuse. That's my trick at least. So 75 squared is equal to the legs, the x squared plus 21 squared. So I square both legs and add them together. 75 squared is 5,625. 21 squared is 441. So I'm probably writing a little small. There we go. So I'll go ahead and subtract 441 from both sides. So 5,625 minus 441 is 5,184. And then the last thing you do with Pythagorean theorem is you take the square root of both sides. And this one is an integer, which is awesome sometimes. So these were Pythagorean triples, if you remember that. So rather than put that x, I'm going to change that to a 72. So I have all this right here now. So we've got one part. The other thing we need to find is the measure of angle D and the measure of angle C. I had to double check what that angle was. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all these together as our final answer. So we got to find those. So to find, now we just get to pick one of the angles, and I don't care which we choose. So in this case, let's pick angle D. D seems fun. So we're going to find angle D. Now because I have all three sides, I am going to go ahead and find or just choose one of the trig ratios, so either so sine, cosine, or tangent. Just writing all those down to remind us. So choose whichever one you want. So let's pretend I chose sine. So I'm going to do sine of D. So the opposite side would be 21, and the hypotenuse would be 75. Now remember what we just learned is in order to solve this, to move the sign over, you do the little inverse. So it's sine inverse of 21 over 75. And then I'll type that in to my calculator. So D is approximately equal to 16.26. So I'm going to put that in my answers. 0.26. Now, once I have at least 26 degrees, I should put degrees, oops. Once I have at least one of the two acute angles, that means we can actually find the third one easily. Because remember, all three triangles add up to 180. So you could either do 180 minus 90 minus 16.26, or you could find C by just doing 90 minus 16.26. Because C and D should add up to 90. And if we just do 90 minus 16.26, you get 73.74 degrees. And there would be your answer. Let's go ahead and do another one of those. Now, I did mistakenly say always find the third side. That's if we already have two sides. If I have at least two sides, I like to find the third side. Which some of these don't have that, so we'll explain how to do that. But this one, I have two sides, so I'm going to find the third side by doing the Pythagorean theorem. And in this case, we're looking for our hypotenuse. So this is like my x over here. So we'll start with x squared. That's equal to 6 squared plus 12 squared. So 6 squared plus 12 squared is 180. We'll take the square root of both sides. If you have one of my calculators, which hopefully you're following along, the square root of 180 is the same as 6 square root of 5. It'll tell you that. Remember, hit that little button right above the enter key, and it'll give you the approximation because they tell us to go to the nearest hundredth. So it would be 13.42. So 13.42. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm calling that x. So I have x equals 13.42. We need to now find the measure of angle A and the measure of angle C. So those are the two we're missing. So once again, once you have three sides, it's really easy because you can just pick whatever sine, cosine, or tangent function you want. I did sine last time. Why not do it again? So let's find sine of A. So the opposite side would be 12. My hypotenuse would be 13.42. Actually, I'm going to back up. I'm not going to use sine because I don't want to use the decimal. It's fine if you do. But I often like to try to use the ones that don't have decimals on them. So I'm going to use the tangent because that's opposite and adjacent. And the only reason I'm doing this is because then my answer is a little bit more exact. So we're going to do the inverse. So A is equal to the inverse, tangent inverse of 12 over 6. 12 over 6 is 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that as 2. And then I'll type that in. So A is approximately 63.43 degrees. Just to give you a kind of an idea, if I had done it the sine way, which honestly is really okay, if I had used the decimal, you would have had 63.41 instead. So it throws it off just slightly. It's not that big of a deal. Measure of angle C. So that's the last thing we're going to find. Remember, once you already have one of the acute angles, to find the other one, you just subtract it from 90, since there's already a 90-degree angle in that triangle. So 90 minus 63.43 is 26.57. So I got 26.57 degrees.